Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shaukatali.
And a very good evening to you and a warm welcome to Newsline Live. Sri Lanka, to have or not to have? We're talking elections. We're talking local government elections. Should we? Should we not? Can we? Can we not? Let's find out. To discuss this conundrum of sorts that our country is facing at the moment, on Newsline this evening is President's Counsel, Mr. Srinath Perera. Very good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, Faraz. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Pleasure. So, to have or not to have elections?
You refer to local government elections.
This, at the moment, it's local government. So we must then tweak the question. Should we have local government elections now or should we not?
Well, permit me, I believe I'm going to come out with a bit of a controversial reply in that we have 4 levels of representatives starting from the President, Parliament, provincial councils and then the local government. An election, even if it results in a crushing defeat, shall I put it this way, as far as the government is concerned, I'm fairly sure they would, given half a chance, they would want not to hold the elections because they know that they are very unpopular at the moment and they wouldn't want to be defeated just now. So
right. Can I just stop you 1 second? I just need to go back to something. The Ceylon Electricity Board and others said that there will be no power cuts because of A-levels and so on. Well, I'm getting reports now that this afternoon in Kandy they had a power cut. Currently in Kohala, this message came in about 15 minutes ago, saying that they were experiencing power cuts. I just thought I'd mention it. Sorry, Mr. Srinath Perera. 4 levels of government. If the government has half a chance, they will not.
They will not, for obvious reasons.
Political reasons.
Political reasons, because they know that they are going to be defeated. On the face of it. Whether it's going to be a crushing defeat or not is another question, but very definitely I get the feeling that they will be defeated. So they will not want to hold the elections. Now, as far as the opposition is concerned, they are pressing for a local government election. Now, the point that I want to make is, let us assume that the government is defeated at the local government elections. Where does it take us? It takes us nowhere, for the reason that a defeat at the local government elections is not going to result in a change of government. Legally, it can't be done. Of course, one might say that if they are defeated at the local government, that will show the mentality or the what the people want, and therefore that will make things easier for them to agitate with a view to overthrowing the government. But
at a parliamentary election,
or even without, that's the impression that I get. But if it is without a parliamentary election that they are going to do it, then I would say it is not according to law. It's not according to law. But
the overthrow of the government.
To overthrow the government, but overthrowing the government should be, in my view, by unlawful methods. But if that is the aim of the people, then you don't need election. They can get together and revolt against the government and overthrow it. I'm not saying that it should be done. No, but if they want to, they can. What I'm trying to say is, we are at a time, we are going through a period where people are suffering due to the corrupt regime that we had, the Rajapaksa regime, and the present regime, which is a direct appendage of the Rajapaksa regime. The country has hit the bottom, rock bottom, where people are suffering in silence, and I think there are millions of people who don't get a square meal. There are children who probably go to sleep hungry. There are people who are dying without getting sufficient medical assistance that they want or the drugs they want. So placed in that situation, for what purpose are we going to throw so much of money and hold an election? If that can result in legally overthrowing this government, certainly yes. I'm in favor of a local government election. But when we know for sure that according to law, even if there is an absolute crushing defeat, still the government which is in power is entitled, the president is entitled to go on for maybe another 2 years or so. The parliament can go on for a little over 2.5 years. Unless there is a revolt which is not legal. So that being the case, placed in this scenario where, but I think I'm looking at it from the point of view of the people who are suffering. People who are starving. In that scenario, going through a local government election which will not ensure a change of the regime is, I think, wasting public funds at a time when we cannot waste public funds. Can I also say this? We all know that the opposition parties, I mean, maybe some of my friends will get angry with me when I say this, but the opposition groups are campaigning for a local government elections. To me, they are doing that for their own selfish purposes. That is, they probably feel that if they can register a convincing victory at the local government elections, that will give them the sufficient muscle to take the next step of trying to overthrow this government lawfully or unlawfully.
I'll come back to you in a second. I just want to say that many questions or many statements coming from members of the public out there. We are without power right now in Kandy. I am watching your program as I have a generator. I dare say not all can afford the same thing. Another one. Even in Wattala this evening we had power cuts. Yesterday it was announced on TV that there will be no power cuts from 6:30 p.m. until the A-level exam is over. However, we had a power cut from 7:35 to 8:55 p.m. today. In Mount Lavinia, also there was power cuts this evening. So I just thought I'd let the PUCSL, the chairman of the CB, and all those sort of connected parties that they should try and tell the truth once in a way at least. But Mr. Perera, the law says we should have it. On the flip side, we have this kind of excuse that we don't have the money. So what happens if it was a, let's say, a parliamentary election, and the same scenario? You know, they say, well, you know what, we don't really have money. And judging by the country's finances at the moment, this is not going to finish in 2 years. We're in for the long haul. But that's, you know, maybe pessimistic, and anyway, that's a view. But let's say a hypothetical situation where it was a parliamentary election due, and the government of the day says, you know what, we don't have the money. People are starving, the eggs, prices of eggs have to be controlled because the people simply can't afford it. But we'll carry on using our V8s and our Jeeps and our gas-guzzling vehicles, but the people are suffering. Then what? Can they say, well, you know, we don't have money, so we're going to extend the term of parliament? No. Or extend the presidency even?
No, they cannot certainly do that. And come what may, if it is a question of a parliamentary election, the government will have to go through it and hold that election. Because
why?
Our system is that
because it's legal and constitutional?
No. What I say is the constitution requires. That's one thing. Secondly, we are talking of a democratic system. Now you might say, well, that's why we say the local government elections also should be held. You might say that. But what I say is, that's true. In a normal situation, government ought to have held or should hold the local government elections as well. But when we are placed in a situation where there is such a financial problem that we are facing, the two elections that we are talking of are different to one another.
Right. Okay.
Local government elections, let us assume that these representatives are not appointed.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that the local authorities will stop functioning.
Yes. Okay.
It will go on. But as far as the parliament elections are concerned, that will, if you have to hold that election, because that can result in a change of regime, which the people are entitled to change.
What you're saying is change of regime, parliament elections, very important because of the governance of a country.
Absolutely.
And the local government it's at local level.
Absolutely.
And even if you don't have elections, there are provisions for it to carry on.
Absolutely.
And are you then saying that there are no such provisions to let Parliament carry on in the event of the country having difficulty in getting money?
I will put it this way, placed in the present scenario. Let's say this is my personal view.
Yes.
Let's assume that the parliamentary elections had to be held in another 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
Then I would say, notwithstanding the fact that we are going through all these problems, financial difficulties, there is no issue, there is no question. Government ought to, whether they like it or not, they ought to hold the elections, subject to maybe an extra, where maybe they can, without themselves making the ruling, maybe they can go before the Supreme Court and get a ruling. For instance, if there is a world war breaks out, where things come totally out of control, in a situation like that, maybe one might be able to say, look here, this is not the time for a parliamentary elections, notwithstanding the fact that the 5-year period has come to an end. But short of that, in a situation like this, where we can with difficulty afford, I think as far as parliamentary elections are concerned, there is no question. It ought to be held.
Once we hear what you say, sorry, you finish.
What I say is, there is an essential difference between the two. In one, we can change this corrupt regime. In the other, even if we go through it, this corrupt regime will continue. So it makes no sense to create more starvation, more deaths due to lack of medicine, right, by having this election, which is really not going to be very critical as far as the regime change is concerned.
I have several questions, as you say, what you've just said. First of all, if we are to let's take it at face value without going a little bit deep even, that in these financially difficult times, that holding of a local government election is just too expensive and they can't justify the cost, even though legally they ought to. But then what about this business of spending money on the Independence Day celebration? Celebrating what? Celebrating starvation, celebrating our financial crisis, celebrating a total and utter mismanagement of our economy.
That's why I said that this present regime is a direct appendage of a corrupt regime. For them, I don't think they are trying to put off local government elections, having the problems that are being faced by the people. That's their only reason for they are trying to postpone the elections, is for very selfish personal reasons, right? But the point that you raised was
the expenditure on the Independence Day celebrations.
That's right. So therefore, what I say is that clearly shows that the government is not concerned about the well-being of the people. As you quite correctly said, 200 million rupees are to be pumped out in another week or two. For what? Just to glorify one individual who is seated there without any authority?
Yes. I want to point out, and I'm fond of bringing this on, but because it's factual and it's true and it's still not resolved. And that is, of course, if we cast our minds back, ladies and gentlemen, to February 2015, the new government wanted to pay the contractors, or so they said. And the minister in charge of the highways at that time, Mr. Kabir Hashim, sends off a letter to the Treasury, where his colleague is the Minister of Finance without the portfolio of the central bank. But bottom line is, they raised not 1 billion, but 10 billion. When the Treasury later transpires, they said we had the money. And even though they advertised for 1 billion, they issued 10 billion. And 10 billion is the amount of money that is required, apparently, for this election.
Absolutely.
So when it suits them,
absolutely,
they do what they want.
Absolutely. That's why I said they are trying to postpone these local authorities elections, not having in mind the people, for absolute selfish, corrupt reasons. I repeat myself, the former government and this government, which is an appendage of that corrupt regime, right? It is for absolute, they are motivated by absolute selfish reasons.
Yes,
I am looking at it as a citizen. I see, when I get onto the road, I see that, I mean, you could see how people are suffering in silence.
Of course.
A lot of people, I mean, it becomes very obvious when you look at the faces of some of these people who are on the roads. You feel that they have not had a meal, maybe for the last 24 hours.
I was stopped coming along this evening on Marine Drive, closer to the Dehiwala end of it, and somebody offered us, wrapped in some newspaper, 6 eggs. They were that desperate. I don't know where they got the 6 eggs from, but clearly they were not in the business of selling eggs. But they offered, they must have got it from somewhere, and they offered 6 eggs. We didn't buy it, but it's indicative of what you're saying here. It says here, I'll come for a break, but just after I read this one from one of our viewers. And by the way, you can send me messages 0772 300 305, but you can't call me during the program because I'm speaking to Mr. Srinath Perera. But people must stay away from celebrations. Let officials salute themselves.
Absolutely.
Well said, actually. On that note, let's go for a break and take a peek at this evening's headline news from the wonderful Primetime News team who've been working all day. See you on the other side of the break.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
News First headlines. Main sponsor.
Durden's Hospital, dedicated to you.
President chairs all-party conference. SJP, NPP and several other parties boycott the conference. Taxes are unjust. Bank employees across the country protest. Doctors report to work with black armbands. University lecturers take to the streets. Four trade unions warn of strike if taxes are not revised. Elections Commission chairman says election will go ahead as planned. Power cuts continue. HRCSL agreement breached. China's Exim Bank grants Sri Lanka 2-year moratorium on loan repayment. India celebrates 74th Republic Day.
News First headlines. Main sponsor.
Durden's Hospital, dedicated to you. Experience the best in healthcare at Durden's Hospital's new Alfred Place wing. We continue to evolve into a purpose-built hospital of the future, with an ambience built to deliver world-class care. Dardens Hospital, dedicated to you. Experience the best in healthcare at Dardens Hospital's new Alfred Place wing. We continue to evolve into a purpose-built hospital of the future, with an ambience built to deliver world-class care. Dardens Hospital, dedicated to you.
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
And welcome back to Newsline Live. I'm in conversation with President's Counsel, Mr. Srinath Perera. Mr. Perera, I hear you and I hear the public, but on the balance of the messages that we're getting, the public are baying for elections. As one says here, elections are needed because we need to tell the president that this government has gone wrong. And this is another avenue to express our view, and it'll be a strong message because it's coming through an electoral process and not through an aragale.
I will hands down concede that. There's no question. That is true. But by telling the president, well, the wishes of the people are against you, what do we achieve? Absolutely nothing. That will not shorten his period. That will not shorten the period of of Parliament. These parliamentarians, especially, I think, that's why I said, if we can have a parliamentary election, yes. Because if people vote them out, a new regime will take over. Come what may, it may be better for the better or worse, but still we will be able to test out a new regime. But without that, just by giving the signal, well, we are against you, what are we going to achieve? And do you think for us that that set of 130 or 40 people vote to MPs,
134,
right, will, come what may, they will vote in favor of a dissolution of Parliament before the 5-year period is over. I bet my last dollar they are not going to do that, because they know that if they go back to their villages, they will never come back, step back to Devanna.
Thank you very much for the questions that you're all posing us. Thank you indeed. But most people, as I say, are concerned for to have elections because they feel it is another way of expressing themselves. And as somebody points out here, thanks to the draconian use of the PTA, which itself is draconian, the public are somewhat scared now and they're on their back foot, and which is why you don't see as many protests as you did pre Mr. Wickremesinghe becoming the president. That's telling, isn't it? Absolutely. When we have the public telling us that, you know, this use of the PTA and used by a president who has championed the cause of democracy whilst retaining his position in the United National Party and sort of fixing that constitution or tweaking it, whatever you want to call it. But the fact is, Ranil Wickremesinghe has championed himself as the champion of democracy.
Absolutely. He has been, in my view, cheating and taking all of us on a ride. Can I also say this for us? When I say that we ought better not hold the local government elections, it is not that I'm against local government elections.
No.
It's not. All what I say is...
You're offering another point of view.
Point of view, because placed in the situation in which we are, if you are really genuinely concerned about the people who are suffering today, I'm not talking about the rich, I'm not talking about the middle class, I'm talking about the millions of people who are starving, who probably will not give me one vote if I contest an election. But that's a different matter altogether. Those are human beings. So we have to also have in mind their well-being, the little bit of benefit that they may get. So it's not that I'm against local government elections. I mean, I don't want the viewers to
To think that you are
I'm
a communist.
No, certainly not.
Want to have
Certainly
elections.
So I'm very much in favor of local government elections and all other elections. But what I say is, placed in this scenario, there is another point of view that one may have to consider seriously.
And thank you for reminding me and raising this point, and that is that today is the day when a lot of people probably receive their pay slips. And I'd like to hear from members of the public, please. 0772 300 305 by SMS or WhatsApp. SMS or WhatsApp 0772 300 305. Tell us what it is that, how much are you suffering from this latest taxation? And second question is, could you tell me whether you feel that you're comfortable paying this tax because you think that the taxes are being used wisely and properly and to alleviate the problem that the government is facing? So two things. Tell me about what you feel about that, and the other one as to whether you think it's been to good use. 0772 300 305. In fact, if you do want to come on the program and appear as a guest on this program, you can send a message and we will, our producers will consider that too, after the necessary checks are done, of course. So on the balance of probabilities then, Mr. Perera, what will happen? Will we eventually have these local government elections? What do you feel?
On the face of it, legally as things are, they ought to have. But my gut feeling is, as I stated earlier, this government, if they get half a chance to put this off, they are going to do it. Whether it's legal or illegal, whether it's for the benefit of the country or otherwise, it's not their consideration. Motivated by very selfish considerations, they are going to put it off.
Another message says, the more this government stays, the more people will starve. Don't you think, you know, one of the mainstays of the law that we practice in this country and the democracy that we also purport to practice here is to let the other side be heard?
Absolutely.
Do you think, so judging from these messages I'm getting tonight, it appears to me that what the people really are saying is that the people are not being heard by their elected representatives.
Absolutely. I agree 100% with the view that you have expressed. And in my view, we have to go a long way in changing this system. It's not easy unless all the people get together. I think it'll take many, many centuries for us to change it to the extent that we are all expecting it to.
There are many protests. Thank you for your message every day. But what I believe what the other viewer from Candy said was that the intensity of the protests are not as they were before. And according to that view from Candy, it's because of the frequent reliance on a draconian piece of law, the PTA, which the government have undertaken to redo, but nothing really has come of that too.
Absolutely.
Mr. Srinath Perera, you know, whilst we thank you for being here, can we, let's say that we are having elections, local government elections, what should the public be looking for in their local government representative?
Well, as I see it, what you have to look for are honest men. More than the political party, the type of individuals who are being sent in, because as I see it, there's a lot of corruption in the local authorities as well.
So is it a good idea to use for the people to use the local government elections as a kind of a practice run for them to exercise, to sort of decide on the basis of what we're going to look for before we vote locally, as a practice run for the parliamentary elections?
Yes, of course, yes, I do agree. And can I also say this? During the Rajapaksa regime, the number of members were increased from 4,000 to 8,000.
Indeed.
Now, I have also been in a local authority for 1 year, a long time back. my experience is that ultimately the whole show is run by the mayor or the chairman or whatever. The others are just there standing by and collecting money for themselves, making not much of a useful contribution.
Thank you very much, Mr. Srinath Perera, for being on Newsline Live this evening. It's now time for the 9 o'clock news, and I wish you a great evening as much as you can. Make it great, and of course, God bless you all.